Sorry, we're also finding out that the panel room needs some work.
It's all about the DIY experience here. Got to build your own panels room.
I can ad-lib a bit about the badge. Basically, about 4 months ago, it was decided that we'd have a circuit board as the actual badge for MAGLabs.
Oh.
Hi. Yeah.
Hey guys.
Is this any louder? Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
So about 4 months ago, it was decided that we would have an actual circuit board as the badge for this event. So far, we've only had that as a swag. The fine difference being this actually gets you into places. The swag is just something that hangs on your, the same lanyard as your badge. So part of the issues with that, with a swag, it's sort of a one-size-fits-all. Security doesn't really care about the swag, so it can all be the same color, and there's no problem. With this, you'll notice there are 3 different colors. There's populated and unpopulated, and then there's also add-on boards for supporters. So it ends up being a very, relatively complicated thing to manufacture. Many emails back and forth between us and China.
Are they good emails?
Yes. So, if you had, who here has been to Prime this last year? Anyone remember the badges from there and how smoothly everything went and how great it was? Great. Welcome for more of the same.
Plug it directly.
Basically, every time you're doing something with hardware, at some point there's sort of a cut time where no matter what you hit, what's wrong with it, you have to ship it. And then you find out all the issues with what you shipped. We're finding some of those now. So, yeah, I don't really know what to say about the hardware in particular. It has Wi-Fi, just like the badge at Super. It's using the ESP8266. It's a cheap little module that it controls the swag, and it also gets us on the Wi-Fi. It's also very power hungry, so thus the extremely heavy batteries on this thing. Once again, we have 8 buttons in the form of controller. That's not going to work on my laptop. One sec. That's one way. And they also have 4 WS2812 RGB LEDs. In addition this time, there's also an unpopulated spot at the top for a very particular piece of hardware made by Valve. They actually shipped us about 4,000 of these little chiclets. And these are actually the prototype sensors that they used in developing the Vive VR headset. So we got real hardware from Valve. And it is not currently soldered to your badge because China is difficult sometimes. But we have a makerspace with soldering irons and hopefully some people who can show you how. And we have the chiclets, and you can add them yourself. DIY. It's a learning experience. We're going to be dropping them off for the makerspace shortly after this panel. Yeah. I think so. I gave them 2 more, so hopefully they have some working soldering irons. Oh, cool. Cool, so we have some projection. And once again, I can't really see what's over there. Oh, yes. Information, as it is posted, will be available on swag.com.
Oh, shit.
Starting early tomorrow morning, we will also have the Swag hotline, 1833 Swages, if you should have a Swag-related emergency.
Can we shift microphones down because this one's...
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay.
The end with you.
Okay, cool. So, yeah. What would it be? I don't really have that much stuff as far as, actual images of us making it go. Most of the hands-on work as far as these ones were getting prototypes done in China and then having them ship kind of late. We went through 4 iterations of the actual 3?
Yeah, we ended up running 4 prototypes.
Okay.
I think something important for reference here is last week was MAGFest, where we were in California doing another circuit board badge.
It's right there.
That's a lot of
What?
a lot of stuff to do in a very short time. So we're
You're
still a
better
bit
at this than
exhausted
I
from
am.
that. We just pulled an all-nighter trying to get some of this code working a bit better.
Play us a tune.
Oh yes, that is the
So
West
they-
swag that we just finished.
Here.
No.
So each one of those we had to hand squeegee solder paste onto and then add the components and then solder on the speaker. We made just over 200 of those.
Yeah, it was a short enough run and a long enough run that was right in that sort of horrible zone where it was too many to make by hand and too few to send off to a factory. And with time crunching in, we ended up doing it by hand. And so we made those on our kitchen table a few days before we went to California. A few hours, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as all of these go, we've hand done all of the firmware at least onto it, but everything else was soldered on, minus the Vive controller. Which have we explained that yet?
Briefly. So basically the Vive Sensor. The way that the Vive headset works, there are two lighthouses. And sorry. Basically, there are two lighthouses, and they're each sweeping light across the room. So they flash, everyone sees that, and then a plane of light crosses the room in each direction. So by taking the amount of time between each of those hitting you, you can figure out what angle you are relative to the lighthouse. So the sensor that would be on your swag, once you solder it on in the makerspace yourself, basically knows where it is in the room whenever it's in range of the lighthouses. So that'll let us do all kinds of neat games. And the more people that use it, the cooler it'll be. So please add it yourself. We have several thousand of them, so everyone should be able to get one, unless we seriously blow our attendance numbers.
At which point, Joe has said he'll shave his head, so tell all your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it for features. As someone mentioned, there is the extra supporter gear. It's a little LCD screen, and it's. We also have 100 extra of these boards. The boards support adding a microphone or a speaker and an IR receiver if you like. You can hack those together in the makerspace however you like. Firmware for that is forthcoming.
So like the way that all these work on like the server side, we have like a kind of like a higher level API because the badge itself is just sending out little tiny packets that are just lots of very like non-friendly data. It's like you press a button and it just packs all of the buttons into like 1 byte and sends it off. So there's a higher level API that we made, which we will post documentation for on swag.com.
Oh yeah, I should mention all of this is open source, hardware and software. It's on the MAGFest GitHub page, and you can also find it on swag.com. We would love contributions.
Yeah.
Do our work for us.
We will also have a badge hacking panel this
Right.
evening at 2.
Yeah, 2 a.m. ish. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 a.m. This room.
Yep.
Bring your laptop and your swag, and yay. We
Be
will make
there or
magic
be
fun
sad.
stuff happen.
Yeah, you can write. Well, we'll write a game up here, and you can watch and point and laugh, and hopefully participate if the game works.
Yes.
We'll probably be. Well, we're doing it in Java and riffing on it the whole way.
It's gonna be great. Like all things Java.
Yep.
Yeah, so code-wise, we do have a sample game written in Python. We have a JavaScript badge simulator that you can load up in your browser.
So we're gonna actually try that demo game. It's right now running on my laptop, or no, it's running on the Swag server. So this will be interesting. If everyone can hold down start program for a second and a half, so you go back into programming mode, then press up, right, down, left. Each one of those lines is one of you guys connecting, so congratulations. If you press either left or right, it'll select an LED, and if you press up or down, it will change the color of that particular LED. So you can go around and set your LEDs to be different colors. This will kind of also give me a little bit of an idea of how overloaded the server is getting with all of you guys, because as you can see, it probably is taking a little bit of time for this to actually go through.
It worked really well in simulation.
Yeah.
We were simulating 300,000 badges, not noticing the latency. Huh.
So yeah.
So if any of you would like to take a look at the GitHub and make your own like Swag game, the example app is pretty. I think it's pretty well commented, at least for my code. But you can make all sorts of cool stuff with it.
Lots. If you set it to maximum brightness, which you can do by hitting A a whole bunch of times, it gets really bright. You can also turn that back down by hitting B a bunch of times. Or at least you sure as hell can try. So hopefully tonight during concerts, probably more so tomorrow during concerts, all of these will detect that you have joined concerts and will become a part of the light show in concerts. Yeah. So look out for that, because that'll be pretty sweet. We're probably also going to add in some other location-based stuff. So like if you're in a panels room, you can ask, like do a quiz, and the panelists can ask you questions and stuff. Can we fire that up right now?
Sure.
All right.
Let's watch the server get crushed under another application.
So yeah, feel free to hold down the button and reset your badge again. Also, a quick note, if you power cycle the badge, last year it would reset your state. This year it does not, so you will still be in the game. So you need to hold down the start program button, or else you'll still be in that game when your badge turns back on. I mean, you know, details.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, you just need to.
Yeah, what's up? Yes.
I noticed that when the firmware patch went out, it hit these too.
Yes.
Are the features from previous swatches still in there, or are those overwritten?
Sort of. So we didn't actually update the firmware on those. Basically, everything the old Swagges did was server-side. So we're not currently running most of the applications that were running that time. We're using some of the new ones. But everything is currently fully backwards compatible. So anything you could do on the old Swag should still work, minus the applications that you're using. It's a little bit complicated. Everything's kind of abstracted in the middle layer. So basically, our server is doing all the work to still understand all the button presses you do, and it's translating that to all of our new applications. So you should be able to log on and play Pokemon along with all the people using the new badge. But we're not running all the applications like that, the Konami Code application we were running last year. At least not yet. We might spin that up later. We're kind of feeling our way through things as everything crushes the server and we try to figure out why. Yeah, if people have questions, please just shout them out, or yeah. Are there any more LCD modules? We have not that many extra, like a couple dozen, I think. Every either supporter or super supporter gets one. I think supporter. We do have 100 extra of the PCBs that they mount on, and the actual LCD is like $2.50, just with relatively long shipping.
Can you post that information for us?
Yes, absolutely. I'm working on getting that up on swatch.com. We're, finishing up getting to a further point in a lot of the code writing portion of the project, and we're trying to wrap everything up into a more friendly way.
Just to clarify, this guy did this pretty much the same thing, minus the Wi-Fi part, last week. He's had 3 days to really solidly work on this stuff. So what he's done so far is like insane. If we could just give him a round of applause for what he's done so far. Which is why every time you hear more features coming soon, you're gonna get them.
Maybe by next year.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And I can't
right.
take all the credit for all of this. It's all the blame.
Yeah.
I have an excellent team helping me out. And Charles, who is not here, also helped in enormous ways.
Yay, Charles.
Yay, Charles. Yes. What was that about batteries? It's technically possible. I don't have an over or an under voltage protection circuit there, so you'd probably want to add one. Yeah, basically it'll take anything up to about 3.5 volts and down to about 2.9 without too much issue. We settled on alkaline just for price. You can't beat the power density per dollar. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was just gonna make a note. So, assuming you're not on full brightness / in concerts all week, your badge should last the entire weekend. Having it in the game that lets you set your thing, your LED colors on full brightness lasts about 12 hours before it goes under the amount that it can actually handle. So, pretty decent. Also, when you exit the Wi-Fi zone, which is most of this downstairs area, it will go into a sleep mode, so it won't use as much power. It'll use some. So, like, if you're going to sleep, try and take out your batteries, but you'll still be fine.
Oh, and one potentially important note. We are using the Wi-Fi signals from the badges to correlate what room you're currently in, and that's used to trigger some of the game modes. If you're extremely paranoid about tracking, you can just pull the batteries. We can't really track things that are off. Granted, we could just as easily track your phone using the same stuff, so
Yeah.
take it as you will. Yeah.
I was just wondering, you kind of answered it, I guess, towards the end of another question, but you said all of the hardware is getting ready to be on the swag.com site.
Yeah.
Yes, so currently everything is on GitHub, absolutely everything. That's public and has all our design files and all that. What's the name? The repo name, I believe it's github.com/magfest/ capital MAGL MAGLabs -badge 2017. Just go to MAGFest and search for badge.
Yeah.
They'll be the most recently updated ones.
I might still have it private, actually. I need to push that.
I think the 2017 MAGFest 2017 badge should be just like.
Okay. I need to mess with settings. I
MAGFest
didn't
or
make it fully public.
MAGLabs?
MAGLabs 2017.
Yeah, that should be
Okay,
it.
yep.
Yep.
Board files.
XX firmware has the actual code.
Okay.
It's a little bit convoluted. So Charles wrote this framework called ESP82XX, and that's the starter project for what became XX firmware. So the firmware running on your badge is in that directory. The repo is a little bit messy. I'm sorry.
How?
I went to over and it's also just board files, which is weird. No, I'm gonna get it. It's fine.
Okay, it should be a bunch of C code.
Yep.
Yeah. The make file has a ton of help information, so you just run make and it'll spit out all the options and everything. Basically, get a serial adapter. I have some. I also use. We actually use Raspberry Pis to do the burning for all these. Basically, plug in a 3.3 volt serial header and then run make burn, and it'll take care of the rest. Yes, in the back.
How do you do flashlight mode on the new one?
Currently, you have to use the aforementioned game. So spin around in a circle and then press A a bunch of times.
And
We'll add power on flashlight mode pretty soon.
Yeah.
do you have a list of all the modes that can go into somewhere?
We
We're
will be
working on that.
Oh,
Soon.
yeah. They'll
Basically,
be
we're
at-
deciding what will work and what will not.
Yeah.
And then that will be on swag.com.
Yeah, swag.com/maglabs-2017, I believe is the current URL, though I'm going to probably change it, so use the menu options. Go there, it'll list everything that currently works, hopefully, fingers crossed.
The other thing, we would really like it if people want to write applications. So we have some reasonable API documentation. It's actually pretty easy to get started. The sample game is extremely self-explanatory, and we're happy to answer questions. You can flag us down. We'll be in Tech Ops. I'll probably hang out in the makerspace for quite a while. And I'd love to help someone walk through learning to code, or someone who already knows how to code, writing an application for our badge. Do my work for me. So we're going to have to spend a bit more time figuring out why the server is having issues. It's actually quite likely the Wi-Fi in this room. We're still dropping access points. Along with the Swag team, Tech Ops, and basically everyone at MAGFest also just crossed country and has had a pretty bad week. So we're catching up on a few things. So Wi-Fi deployment should become a lot smoother shortly.
What are the streams going to be used for?
You'll be able to scroll text from the API, and we're working on adding to swag.com an interface where you can give yourself a nickname, and that'll fly across the screen. I just need to add font support and write it.
We're also going to be trying to put up a kind of like a scoreboard thing.
Right.
So see who pressed the most buttons.
Yeah. So there'll be achievements for staying in a room the longest, for pushing a button the most often, all sorts of things like that. We're working on getting some screens put around the venue to show you their scoreboard, or hopefully to also put it on the website. We're kind of pushing the website on Sprague, so he could do everything for us right now.
Working on it.
We'll do as many of those things as we can figure out.
Yes.
Yep.
Before Sunday?
Yeah.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, any more questions?
Did you?
Up, down, up, down, up, down.
And then let
should probably
me
make that
go
not
grab
conflict.
the computer and unlock
Fix it.
When Valve sent you the modules for the,
Yeah.
do they send you the data sheet too?
There isn't really a data sheet for them. They're actually pretty simple. So the modules that they sent us aren't actually the final hardware that shipped. It was one of their prototypes. So you get a little piece of Valve history if you go solder it onto your badge. They basically have a 3-pin interface, just power, ground, and signal out. All that they're doing, well, not to say it's basically they're applying a windowing function to things. So when the lighthouse is sweeping light across the room, there's actually a carrier embedded on that signal. I think it's 1.8 megahertz, something like that. So instead of seeing a nice square pulse where it hits you, you see this weird waveform. The module actually has the analog hardware on it that turns that back into a square pulse. So it's a lot easier for your digital circuitry to look at. So in our case, we're using the I2S engine on the module, on the ESP8266 to read that in. So basically, analog light is sweeping across our badge. It's pulsing really fast. That hits a sensor. That creates a really brief sine pulse. That gets smoothed by the analog circuitry into a square. Then that turns into a block of ones and zeros, where it's literally a giant string of zeros and then a short string of ones. That gets streamed into the I2S engine as our audio at a ridiculous speed, straight into memory using DMA. And then every now and then the processor comes back through and says, okay, where does it change from a 0 to 1? And it records that timestamp. And that's what ends up becoming the angle data.
It's pretty simple.
There's a lot more after that, too.
And there's lots of math to figure out where that actually means you are instead of just ones.
One issue, so with the Vive headset, when you actually get the Vive, you hold it in basically you put it in view of both of the lighthouses, and they figure out where each other are by bouncing off, by looking at where the Vive thinks they are. So it says, well, I see one up there and I see one up there, and they say to each other, oh, well, we're in this triangle. That's only possible if you have a whole bunch of sensors that you already know the locations of. Each badge only has one sensor. So in order to know where it is in a 3D volume, you have to pre-calibrate the space. So we're working on getting some rigidly mounted lighthouses. Otherwise, it'll just be a 2D plane, and it just acts like a giant joystick, which is also pretty cool. You can do a theremin. Hey, anyone want to write a theremin?
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Does anybody have ideas for things they'd like to see these do?
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier about like an infrared sensor, yeah?
Yeah.
You could use that as like a base station for like laser tag, right? Like to grab
Yeah.
the signals.
Yeah. Several people have suggested laser tag. It's easier using.
Your thing isn't running.
What's that? Oh, sorry. Laser tag's hard. Surprisingly hard, actually. It might actually be easier to use the Vive sensor to figure out where you are in the room, and then make a decision about where your gun is pointed and find the other player using the Vive sensor, than to actually just shoot IR light at them and have it pick up on time. Or not on time, but reliably. But it's theoretically possible with the hardware. If someone wants to write the software and try it out and figure out why it's hard. Any other questions? I was hoping to have a lot more images of like the prototypes and things, but I didn't get much chance.
We
Yeah.
forgot to take those
What do you
because
guys use for the software? Like, do you guys use Eagle or like what do you guys use?
I used KiCad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's open source. It actually works pretty well. I'm a huge fan of it, and it's easy enough to extend when you need something new. And like, it's a lot more apparent on the West badge. Can someone hold that up? So that inside circle is actually a touch wheel. And the way that's assembled is it has 3 regions that are like interlocking combs. So that way, as you move your finger around the touch wheel, it sort of tapers from one comb to the other. And that gives you varying capacitances through 3 different regions. The geometry of that pad is extremely complicated. And trying to do that in PCB software is not fun. So Charles actually wrote a very simple C program, also open source and on our GitHub, which basically just outputs the points, and the board files for KiCad are simple enough that you can just generate those without too much work. Yeah. The other thing that we run into a lot with these badges is trying to get art onto them. So like having the mark center on the back and the little radio player thing, artwork on the front, and if you were to say unsolder the battery holders, possibly more art. It ends up like doing weird things like crashing the Fab Shop's software because it's just not made to handle that many points and that many vertices. So it's really hard to go from rasterized graphics to the vector graphics that everyone's software uses in a reliable way that's not going to destroy everything. So you'll get some really weird boards sometimes. And it's just kind of weird seeing software glitches turn into hardware.
Did you get the board manufacturer also list the components, or did you have 2 different?
Yeah. For the West swag, we actually did all the placements by hand. There were 200 of those boards, so it was just on the board we were being practical. For this board, there were 1,550 with components placed, so that's not something I'm doing on my dining room table. So we shipped that off. They have a pick and place. They pretty much knocked it out in a day or 2 of their factory time. And then the battery holders were actually hand soldered because they're through hole. The Vive sensor would have also been hand soldered, but it would have pushed our assembly date back by about 2 days. And these arrived on Tuesday. That's a little close for comfort. That's a lot close for comfort. And especially because we had to predict that like 2 months ago. Yeah.
Wednesday.
Was it Wednesday? It was probably Wednesday.
It was Wednesday when.
Right,
it
I was on a
actually
plane
got
on
into the
Tuesday.
company. Yeah.
Hardware is fun. Go become computer programmers. It's way easier. Yeah, anyone else?
If everyone wants to come look at this West badge, feel free. I can pass it around. But it's got my actual badge on it, so don't steal it.
Doesn't it have a locator on it? Couldn't you just find whoever?
I could, but
As long as they don't take the battery out.
Almost.
If you wanted, I could talk about the West Swatch more. Basically, so part of having only 200 boards versus 2,000. Sorry, what's that? Yes, swag.com. We'll have as many details as we can fit onto it in the next like 2 hours. Basically, because we only had 200 boards, we had to keep the costs way down because we don't have nearly the same quantity of, or we don't have the same scale, so buying any component is relatively more expensive. So we couldn't have Wi-Fi on them. We had to use a CR2032. We used an AT Tiny for the controller, and we had to keep the interface really simple. We didn't even have any LEDs or anything on it. So it's just interesting how much more you can do with just making a few more boards. So I kind of want to try doing 20,000 for Mag Super and seeing what happens if everyone has one. But that means basically adding $5 to the badge price of Super, and that's a big chunk of our organization just for this. And so far we've done an okay job. Yeah.
You tried to work on any like finding and like communicating with people in the same room on like badge to badge?
We're looking at that. It's a lot easier with the LCD screen. Someone actually proposed, I don't know exactly what I'd call it, but basically it would be like hotter, colder for a person. So you would push a button and it would say, okay, we picked a random person for you. Yeah, and then like the LEDs would flash faster as you get closer to them, and then you can like start up a conversation or something when you meet them, something like that. It would be really easy to write. Our API makes it extremely simple. We're already basically doing most of the hard work of figuring out what room you're in. And we also have an RSSI thing where we'll send a packet from one. What's that? Oh, okay.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, I have an idea. Could you do like a humans versus zombies where like badge lights up green for zombies?
Yeah.
And then I don't know how you would infect another person, but like that.
Yeah. We have a mechanism that'll basically give you a rough estimation of how far you are from one badge to another particular badge. Basically, it sends out a packet and figures out how loud it is when it gets there. It's very approximate, but it's better than nothing. So probably good enough for like zombie versus not zombie range. So it'd be a lot of fun if someone would write it for us. Yeah.
So like MAGFest in January, what large scale convention, what kind of ideas do you have picking up for using these kind of things in the future?
A lot of it is perfecting what we have now. Because right now, this many people sitting in a panel room this size overwhelms our Wi-Fi. It makes it difficult for the server to handle things. And that doesn't scale nicely or look good on paper. So mostly it's figuring out how can we make things more efficient. So for example, when you go into concerts, we're not doing anything like what we're doing in the panel room here. We're actually broadcasting directly from one badge to everyone else's badge with a single packet. So right now, if you push a button, you have to go talk to the access point. It has to talk back to our server. Our server has to figure out what to do, send back a message to get back to your swag. In concerts, the lighting board sends DMX to a single swag, and then it just shouts out, hey everyone, turn red. And everyone hears that same packet, and it's just orders of magnitude less traffic. So that's how we can have concerts sync up nicely, and it's also difficult to do things in here. So we're kind of hoping to maybe do some sort of mesh networking, something like that. So there'll be lots of experimentation over the next few days to see how we can improve things. Part of the issue with this is when we only get this much hardware, like on Wednesday, I never got a chance to power up more than like 3 badges at the same time and see what goes wrong. So it's really interesting to see in this panel room, like when we go back through these logs, why did it crash our server? What are you doing?
Right now, it looks like a few, 13 people are determining whether or not Rob's the best.
How do we join the vote?
Up, down, up, down.
Voting intensifies.
I didn't even realize. Which Rob?
Yes.
You decide. Vote now.
This is some great screen placement.
We need to get a panel with all the Robs up here and just run this. Figure out.
Hmm.
45 people. Dear God. I am surprised at how responsive this is. So I'm kind of curious what goes into that.
Well, this is JavaScript, so it's got to be faster.
You know what? I bet I know what it is. So we're using the Autobahn library for both of these. The JavaScript Autobahn library is made to handle like phones moving around all over the place. So it handles server disconnects and reconnects way smoother than the Python version. Because the thing that was killing the Pokemon game earlier is it was disconnecting from our, basically we have a WebSocket server that's routing all the packets all over the place. And we kept getting disconnected from it.
Did I just hear you
never
say
reconnects.
something in Java was better than in Python?
JavaScript, and
Okay.
it's more developed.
It's just different, okay?
It's
It
like
has to be better, because the
better.
environment's so much worse.
it's almost like when you hear someone say Hitler was a great, and then you just kind of fill in that last word on your own.
That happens all the time.
All the time. Anyway, I'm done.
Yes.
So in the future, do you see something like this becoming like the default badge thing all panelists will start using? Or do you think it'll stay as like a premium item?
It's hard to say because budget-wise, this is actually a pretty big chunk of a badge cost. $5 is not that much for an individual to purchase, but it's a lot if it's just tacked on to everyone's badge. So you're always sort of weighing what could we do with $5 on a badge for concerts, for example. Like we could buy some pretty serious lighting for concerts, a lot more than 4 LEDs per person. So to some degree, it might be worth it because of the wow factor. So depending how much we can develop the software over the next probably 1 or 2 events or so, we'll decide. I'm getting a thumbs up from Rob.
It looks like he wants to
Rob
help.
has volunteered to write everything ever. Thanks, Rob.
Thank
Hi
you, Rob.
there.
I'm glad to hear that Swagges will be part of Reggie. And he'll take care of all that for us.
Yay.
Yay. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
As best as we can.
Yeah.
One thing we did not do with the original Swag was add any sort of like update mechanism to it, other than me actually coming up with a cable and programming it. This is the first time we're trying that, and so far it's mostly worked about 80% of the time. I'm still finding the other like 20% of people whose badges have not updated yet, and trying to figure out why. There's lots of reasons. It could be just the server failed the time it tried, and I need to go tell it to try again. Wi-Fi is unreliable. Maybe someone's like just outside the building, so I'm getting marginal signal at best. All kinds of things, and trying to make something robust enough that when it fails, it doesn't brick your badge is kind of important. So far, I don't think we've permanently bricked anything. We'll find out.
If you have bricked something, come to Tech Ops and we'll hopefully unbrick it.
Yeah, if anyone's having badge issues, whenever we stop talking, feel free to come up here and I'll try to reflash it, or just start coming up here and that'll stop us from talking.
Yay.
Pirates as in like creates fake badges, or?
I don't know, I didn't really think about that much.
Okay. So one of the fun things to this whole process is we have to kind of keep this all secret because this is the actual badge of the conference, so it gets people in the door. But at some point, someone was yelling at me about accidentally releasing some of the images and stuff. But when it's a few days before the event, if you can actually fake this thing, I want to know your manufacturer. I had to take 2 months for ours to get us these. If you can get it in less than that, tell me. I'll give you a badge. For cheap, if you can get it made for cheap. I understand there are places I can spend a lot of money. Can you read that?
Once you're paying that much to get a fake badge made that quickly, you might as well get an actual badge.
Yup.
Yeah, but sometimes it's the journey. Yeah. Okay. If you press up, right, down, left, does your badge do anything? It's just sort of a circle. Did that light up? Good to know. We might be breaking badges with the over-the-air updates.
Yay.
That's good to know. I'll have to take a look at that. Okay. If
We
your
will
badge is
look
not
into
currently working, I'll reflash it and hopefully it works. Okay. Yeah, if there are any more questions, I'll just start reflashing badges until they kick me out.
Yay.